tens of thousands of working people standing up against corporate greed, because that's what we're in the streets fighting against.
Shut the WTO down!
If you have information that can help us mobilize together to stop this, you'll be of great help.
To me, this is a reality check, because this is the reality of our city, of the people who live here. Civil disobedience is another version of freedom of speech. Rubber bullets and tear gas.
Child labor!
Does anyone know the lyrics to Millions of Dead Cops?
Civil disobedience is another version of freedom of speech. Rubber bullets and tear gas.
Let me just stop talking, and you can hear the traditional beat of the riot stick.
An eerie sound from Seattle's Capitol Hill tonight, clearly.
Because they didn't want to present a police state image, which is basically rounding up people and arresting them.
Whether you think there were wrongdoings on both sides or one side or the other, the side I was on didn't have tear gas, and it didn't have guns, and
Nonviolent civil disobedience is a very American tradition. Martin Luther King Jr., Henry David Thoreau, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks. Without public protest, we would still have slavery. And
these tactics were war tactics.
Boy, eerie sights and sounds, too, from Capitol Hill. The pounding of those staves on the street from riot police. Very odd in Seattle.
Almost tribal in a way.
Those who make peaceful protest impossible make violent protest inevitable.
Civil disobedience is another version of freedom of speech. Rubber bullets and tear gas.
There's a lot of confusion out here on the outside for those delegates who are trying to make it in.
The whole purpose of this protest today was to keep the WTO opening ceremony from happening, and that is apparently exactly what is going on. We're taking a look at a live picture here of the Paramount Theater inside.
They've been successful in blocking this WTO from getting started.
Marchers swarmed the streets around the convention center, delaying the beginning of the WTO meetings.
Well, everyone's going to be looking for a spin on this.
There's just too much going on, and you're not paying attention.
Protesters have successfully delayed the start of the symposium in the Paramount Theater.
But early in the morning of Tuesday, November 30th, police began tear gassing demonstrators.
This scene that was a cross between Star Wars and Tiananmen Square.
These demonstrators are asking for a seat at the table.
Party in the streets outside of the Paramount Theater.
The protesters had a goal. Have they won?
I don't view this as a game, and I don't see this as a win-lose situation.
Civil disobedience is another version of freedom of speech. Rubber bullets and tear gas.
The rather large no protest zone imposed now by the Seattle Police Department. It's about a 50-block area, we're told, and as you can see, it's bordered by the streets of Lenora, 4th Avenue, Seneca, and Burien.
They're just angry that they can't protest in the streets, so they're doing it anyway.
This is a type of speech that's entitled to the highest protection, not only the content because it's political expression, but because it's occurring on public streets, public sidewalks.
They're chanting. The whole world is watching.
See, the real political issue here now has become, in whose safety are the police operating, and who are they protecting?
The Seattle Police Department has extended these perimeters around the city in which they're allowing no protesters.
I think tomorrow morning I'm going to come down here and protest in the no protest zone. Maybe with a sign that says, I'm here to protest the no protest zone.
You go inside, you will be arrested.
We'll go back to regular programming now.
Civil disobedience is another version of freedom of speech. Rubber bullets and tear gas.
These are our streets. We are the people. These are our streets.
They have massed a fairly large contingent here at this intersection at 3rd and Pine.
At 3rd and Pine, police moved in with a dozen squad cars, hoping to finally force protesters out of downtown.
And what is happening is protesters don't know exactly what the police want them to do, but I think they've gotten the idea pretty clearly now. They're trying to get them out of this area.
The intersection of 3rd and Pine, a line of police cars.
But it was quickly apparent the strategy wasn't working. Police retreated. Protesters claimed victory.
I've never seen police behave so provocatively before. I believe they acted like they were capable of killing innocent people.
Civil disobedience is another version of freedom of speech. Rubber bullets and tear gas.
What we have had went from a cheese and brie party to the of downtown Seattle.
The pepper spray will stop them temporarily. It certainly won't stop them completely.
Burning within our lungs and burning in our eyes.
Police have informed them today that it is a felony to sell gas masks in the city of Seattle.
The purchase of a gas mask within the city limits of Seattle is actually barred.
It causes you to immediately start crying and your eyes are watering.
Certain rights may or may not be taken away due to the situation at hand.
Political speech in particular is a form of expression that receives higher protection than normal.
We don't allow teachers who are under a great deal of stress to go about whacking their students, and we can't allow police officers to use excessive force.
Gas masks are in the city of Seattle to be possessed only by police officers and the military.
We have delegates from 135 nations here to discuss trade, and then we have thousands of people from all over the globe here in Seattle to protest.
Well, let's talk about WTO a little bit more in depth.
The tear gas is really powerful.
All right, Megan.
I got attacked.
Protesters took over the streets against the World Trade Organization meetings.
This is a peaceful group that specializes more in street theater.
I was wrong about the WTO. Dead wrong. Dead wrong about the WTO. Dead wrong.
When you talk about our environment, when you talk about endangered species, when you talk about jobs and how people are treated.
So that's what this whole thing really was all about.
Where do these people come from?
Anyone in the wrong place at the wrong time was arrested.
I don't think I can ever trust the police again.
Creativity should dominate, not economic power. We should be living humanity creatively, not grinding humanity into the ground. It's an uncreative process. Stomp out this uncreative process.
Anything they can do to hide their identity.
Protests in Seattle, Washington this week are reminiscent of rallies of the 1960s and 1970s.
When you're here, the feeling is much different than the pictures would suggest.
Trust me, you can sell your soul to the devil. I have a simple one phone call. You can sell your family, sell the car, sell the dog. Hell, eat the dog, live under a rock.
Thank you so much for your phone call. We really appreciate it.
We have delegates from 135 nations here to discuss trade, and then we have thousands of people from all over the globe here in Seattle to protest.
Well, let's talk about WTO a little bit more in depth.
The
tradition of nonviolent demonstration has an honorable history from Susan B. Anthony to Gandhi to Martin Luther King.
There has been a human chain up by your location all day long. What's going on now?
Well, that human chain has been going on since about 8:30 this morning.
Certainly a wild day in Seattle.
It's an understatement.
It's a 4-inch 20-gauge steel surrounded by concrete with rebar and chicken wire in it, surrounded by plastic on the top.
Let's show the lockbox here. Are these pretty heavy?
These are like, what, 100, 150 pounds?
In the middle of 6th and Pike, they sat chained together with pipes and bike locks linked by their opposition to the World Trade Organization.
We're here to shut down the WTO.
They're not meeting today.
They were all chained together on this intersection, 4th and University, for hours and hours today.
These are the ones that actually locked themselves into these cement barriers. How are you doing so far? You've been out here, what, about 8 hours?
I'm doing great at the moment.
For everything we saw on TV, there were hundreds of incidents, thousands of incidents that were not captured by a camera.
Expose the offenders and demand accountability.
We survived it, and they stopped, and they didn't come running in and beating us up, which was really nice of them.
We have delegates from 135 nations here to discuss trade, and then we have thousands of people from all over the globe here in Seattle to protest.
Well, let's talk about WTO a little bit more in depth.
Now take a look at the video that we shot just minutes ago.
Packed onto a bus and taken to a remote warehouse.
I wonder where they're taking him.
Sandpoint Naval. Apparently.
I heard the Kingdom.
Oh, well. Not much difference.
Here's where some of them ended up. The old Naval Station brig at Sand Point.
We're told, though, that inside they are not giving their names, they are not giving where they're from.
Arrested protesters are not getting immediate access to legal representation.
Now, the judge did order that they need to have access to telephones, but this building here at Sandpoint apparently doesn't have any phones in it.
In fact, that's such an Alice in Wonderland kind of thing to say that I don't really have a response to it.
They right now do not have police reports to match up with the detainees that they were trying to process through.
It takes a long time to process that many people who've been arrested.
So this stalemate continues. The protesters say they won't get off the buses, and so far the police are not doing anything. There is a certain irony, because if you look at this particular Metro bus, it has a big placard on it saying, "Welcome, WTO to Seattle." They're fingerprinted for identification before finally being loaded up for a ride downtown to the King County Jail.
With another WTO update. Stay tuned.
A public safety order to disperse or move from this area. Your conduct is a violation of city and state law.
You're violating the Constitution!
Corporate rule is history. How I want to be